the audience has become the show, and that's never good. It just means none of us are going to have any heroes. Again, you know, we're not going to see a James Dean or a John Wayne or anybody like that.
Yeah,
I don't think. I think what we'll have is stars that you never heard of, that you suddenly hear of, that make $49 million, and then you never hear about them again. I mean, we're same with the charts. A song can be number one.
Yeah.
Then you look for it the next week, and it's fucking not even on the chart. You know, that's us. That's cultural ADD. We're the people who buried Mozart in a pauper's grave.
I spend a lot of time on the internet, as is the nature of my job, and I'm still consistently amazed at some of the kind of rabbit holes that I go down in terms of what's out there. Because I heard you talking about this a little bit before, and I definitely agree with you in terms of popular music and what you hear on the radio. But I do think that there's a lot of good and interesting stuff out there. It just doesn't necessarily float to the top.
Yeah, there's positive shit, like record companies turning into dinosaurs. That's not bad. Publishing houses the same. That's good. As long as we're getting to the truth. Like, I've spoken to journalist conventions of high school journalists. You talk about the whole audience of people who come from all over the state, say, of Texas. I did one fairly recently. You're not going to find a better bunch of kids than these. And they're after one fucking thing, searching for the truth. They really want to find the truth. Yeah. Then the minute they graduate, they go to college, graduate, that all ends. I mean, if they're staying in journalism, it's no longer a search for the truth. I mean, if you want the truth, you're a fucking idiot. What it is whatever the agenda of the newspaper is. I mean, it's ridiculous. The media, or being a journalist, it's almost impossible to search for the truth. Yeah.
And to make any money doing it.
You and I find what we like. You like Donald Trump, you look at this channel. If you like Bernie, you look at this one. And now, personally, at the moment, politically speaking, you haven't asked me, but I'll.
I was about to get there.
I am supporting Bernie at this time, mostly because I want to see a Jew in the White House. But seriously, if Bernie wins. If he wins, it will be the first time a Jewish family has moved into a place that a black family has just moved out of.
Are you actually supporting Bernie? I feel like you probably see
at the moment, yes,
a little bit of something in Trump and Bernie.
I like both of them. Yeah.
The raconteurs.
Well, I like Ben Carson too. As far as Trump's concerned, for me. For the presidential race, I think we should take the measure of how the man has grown in office, not where he came from or who he was. An example would be FDR and Churchill, two born aristocrats, disgusting, aristocratic freaks. And I mean, Churchill never did anything before his man came and dressed him and brought some little whiskeys and things he had to have. He couldn't travel without his valet and his husband. Anyway, that's how those guys started. But something happened, and they developed a palpable bond with the common man. Both of them did. So when they died, the grief was really real. They were not aristocrats. They were beloved by the common man. And that's a measure of growth in office. You get to a position of power and you realize the power suddenly. And what do you do? Truman's another one who his own party regarded as a caretaker. He's a failed haberdasher.
He owned a hat shop,
so Truman was not only became a great president, but became one who made decisions that affected the lives of millions of people. And he got it right. I mean, he got it right. He didn't call a focus group, and he did it. So he became a great president in office. Obama has not grown a millimeter. He just hasn't. You measure him, how tall he's become on the wall. He hasn't I don't see it. I don't see any growth at all. Jimmy Carter is a good example of a smart man and a kind man who was a fucking Sunday school teacher who should never have been president.
He grew a lot after he left office.
Well, we can look at, was that after?
Well, a lot of the, just in terms of, all of the humanitarian work and stuff.
Oh, no, that's all great. I'm talking about being a Sunday school teacher. You say he was never a Sunday school teacher before?
Oh, that I'm not sure of.
I think he was,
He was a peanut farmer, right?
Yeah, well, that doesn't bother me. The peanut farmer's perfect to become a great man, but the mentality of a Sunday school teacher is not what you want in the White House, and especially now.
Yeah.
Because our shit's fucked up.
Are you out of politics for good?
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't fucking know.
Just too tired?
No, I'm not too tired at all. I just, it's as I've always said it, politics, poly means more than one, and ticks are blood-sucking parasites. So limit these bastards to 2 terms in office, term limits. 2 terms, 1 in office and 1 in prison. I think that would go a long way toward resolving the problem, which mainly is that we're not inspired by any of these guys. None of them. In America, in Africa. I think you know about Mandela, listening to the song Raymond Jewboy.
Yeah, smuggled in.
Yeah, it was just
cell.
Thinking, he didn't tell somebody to get Kinky Friedman's album from 1973. But it happened, and when it fell into his hands on Robben Island, he could have played Get Your Biscuits in the Oven and Your Buns in the Bed, which was a very catchy song, or something else. And now we get all this from the guy in the next cell who worked for Mandela, who was his right-hand man, Tokyo Sexwale, spelled
now running for the
Sexwale. Well, he's the one
head of FIFA, I think, at the moment.
He had a what?
Head of FIFA. He's running for the head of the International Soccer League.
Is what? What's his name?
Tokyo
Sexwale?
Yeah.
You're kidding me.
For the Sepp Blatter stepped down in disgrace.
Oh, shit, I didn't know that.
Yeah. As of the last couple of days, I think he put his hat in the ring. So what clicked for you? I mean, obviously there's a lot of people out there singing about these things, or leading protests. What actually clicked in you that you needed to take that next step and step into the political arena?
I think what JFK always wanted was for guys like you and me to get into government, get into politics. And the opposite has happened. So now we really do have a criminal class. And our great American philosopher, George Carlin, is absolutely right. It's the illusion of choice. If you really think there's a difference between voting for Hillary or voting for Trump, you're wrong. There is no difference. There might be a slight difference because Trump, like him or not, is not corrupt and he's from the outside. He and Bernie are Bernie's from, who knows where Bernie could be completely insane, it's possible. He's older than me. And I'm 70, though I read at the 72-year-old level.
So, but what I guess the question then is, when you look back and you've done all these myriad things, you've written books, I
almost swallowed my microphone.
And you almost swallowed a microphone. Is there any regret of not just kind of like focusing on one particular aspect of your career?
Would have been better, yeah. Curse of being multi-talented. I don't recommend it to anybody. I am pretty sure from the way The Loneliest Man I Ever Met, that song is connecting with people better than Nashville Casualty in Life or Sold American, who were also, those were songs about Nashville too, and I think they were maybe better songs, I'm not sure. But Will Hoover and I wrote The Loneliest Man I Ever Met when we were struggling songwriters. And I'm thinking back, that's a very pure state when you're a struggling songwriter. That's a wonderful kind of way to be. And if you want to be miserable, like this record has been called various things, solemn or whatever, it's been called some very good things. And just in the reviews that have come in like this week, one of them said, this is not a record, this is a work of art. Another one said, this is a mirror. Whatever the hell it is, it's romantic in the sense that it's tragic.
Yeah.
Like true love results in a hostage situation every time. And if you can get there, Brian, if you can get to where you're really melancholy, to where you're miserable, you got a chance. I mean, you got a chance to write stuff as great as Willie and Shel Silverstein and Roger Miller and Merle Haggard and Christopherson.
Tom Waits.
Tom Waits were able to do. This was not written. Jimmy Webb, another one, all written in a kind of short period of miserable time. Well, Willie's, arguably, his 3 greatest songs were written in 1 week. And that was the week that his car had a bunch of flat tires, that he had no money, he had 3 starving kids, and his wife and him weren't getting along, and he was playing at some club that didn't pay him, and driving across Houston to get to this gig in his old jalopy. And it was terrible, really bad times. And that's when he wrote Nightlife, Crazy, and Funny How Time Slips Away. And that's no accident. I mean, so I fight happiness at every turn. And success distances you from your art. There's no question about that. So you got a Billy Bob Thornton is right. Stay hungry if you can. If you can stay hungry. I would add to that just be miserable. I mean, look at Van Gogh's career. Look at Mozart's career. Look at these people, and great work is never done by a guy who sits down and says, I'm going to paint my masterpiece now.
At the end of your life, though, having done great work trumps happiness?
Well, you're asking, does having done great work...
it's precluded happiness. You didn't let yourself be happy, when you're looking back on things.
Look, being a miserable old fuck is not going to, you don't automatically become an artist. But I've said that anyone who's ahead of his time and behind on his rent is an artist. So I guess I'm agreeing the audience has become the show. Mm-hmm. Some of the audience is more talented than others, of course. How do we know when a guy gets as good as Bob or Willie? They're so great. You and I could write a mediocre piece of shit in here, and one of them could sing it, and people say, that's pretty good, you know? And it really wouldn't be very good. Yeah. In fact, they could write that kind of shitty song, and they're such good performers that they can bring it home. I don't think the culture... I think it's an ADD culture. We're navigating a Miley Cyrus world. And who's that motherfucker in Canada? Can never.
Oh, Bieber.
Justin Bieber.
Yeah. How I knew exactly who you were talking about when you said that motherfucker in Canada.
That's the description. Ever since the guy a few weeks ago in UPS store in Kerrville, Texas, told me I look like a white Richard Pryor, he said. Huh. And I was very flattered by that. And I have been peppering my dialogue with motherfucker a little bit more as a result. And also, I think if Richard Pryor were around, they're coming up right now, he'd be a homeless person. Yeah, that's what I think it'd be.
Were you? Were you miserable when you started? When you sat down and started putting together the record?
No, but I was badgered half to death by the producer Brian Molnar from New Jersey. And Brian is just a guy I met about 10 years ago at a show or something. But he's a purist, you know. He knows a lot about music, and he just somehow got my voice right. That sounded really good with this kind of, I don't know how he did it, a big, giant, old-fashioned microphone and these baffles around it, not using a studio, and using one or two instruments performed by really talented people. Joe Cerati is a guitarist, and Mickey Rayfield is, of course, on harmonica. And it just, and somehow the album conceptually flows, and it breaks just about every rule, and it was certainly not intended to be a educational tool for millennials, but if they listened to it, they would hear some songs that I think are significant. Now I'm personally involved with almost every song, but they're not just important songs or big songs, but they're significant, and it's what songwriting is about. Some of them are great. Warren's song "My Shit's Fucked Up" is I think transformational. I think it's more than just a guy who's dying of cancer.
Yeah. It's
And Waits,
about the world going to shit.
Tom Waits has been to all 50 states and the broom closet of the Tropicana Hotel. That Christmas card from a hooker in Minneapolis is turning out to be so good, the audience is laughing about halfway through the song. And depending on how hip they are, sometimes they've heard it, but usually not.
It's a funny song.
It's fun
in its own way, yeah.
Well, and then it's a beautiful fabrication.
Yeah.
I mean, this hooker has really, this bit about she had all the money we used to spend on dope. I'd buy me a used car lot, wouldn't sell any of them, just drive a different car every day, depending on how I feel. It's a heartbreaking song.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of us in her. I mean, really, if I ask you, how are you doing, Brian? Everything going, you'd come up with a bunch of bullshit. And, oh, yeah, man, this job is great, you know, family, or whatever you tell me. But a lot of times it would be a lie. It would not be true.
You're living on a ranch with a bunch of dogs. I mean, that sounds like a pretty happy life as far as those things go, right? It's a pretty good place to be at 70.
Yeah, it is, and you can import people,
Yeah.
There was a time recently when I had 4 editors, 4 dogs, and 4 women, but that became hard to juggle and balance. So, and I'm also mindful of not being too happy. You can add to that, you don't really want to be too successful. I mean, you can almost chart the work of these guys, and when you get to a great Christopherson song, it was written when he was really fucked up.
Yeah.
Willie did his best writing when he was stoned, didn't have a job, lived in an old trailer park, and that's where he wrote Hello Walls. His one friend in town was the craziest guy, Roger Miller, in all of Nashville. Roger Miller used to come visit him at this trailer park. He was the only one who would go in there because it's in East Nashville, and it was a bad area. And on the trailer next to Willie's is a little sign that says trailer for sale or rent.
That'd be a good lyric for a song.
Might be a good lyric for a song. And that's when Willie said the happiest, he was only happy, felt comfortable at peace when he was sleeping in the back seat of Roger's station wagon. And when those guys left Dodge, when they got out of Dodge, things really changed in Nashville. Now you've got songs by committees. You've got click tracks on everything, which you definitely won't hear on The Loneliest Man, because already a number of people have mentioned to me that Bloody Mary Morning is out of sync, that it's out of rhythm.
It's not auto-tuned.
It's not out of tune, and it is spontaneous.
Yeah.
It's infectious. It's spirited, and it does sound like it was done in a bar room or someplace in West Texas. And, yet it works. Most people who are not musicians love it. They really like it. And I was going to say something about. Willie's been doing this for 65 years. Literally, he's been doing out of sync or out of rhythm. In other words, he's deliberately, consciously out of step. And man, that is important for an artist. I mean, that's a lesson right there. To be out of step, if you can, and sometimes it doesn't pay off in your lifetime.
You said this as we were walking in here before we turned on the mics, that Willie was the one who convinced you to not just do the tour, but do back-to-back dates, and it sounds like that's played into that a little bit. That sort of that discomfort that you're having some of your best shows right now because you're not taking breaks in between. If
you fail at something long enough, you become a legend. That's what Willie said. But yeah, this idea it's worked for me too in Germany. It worked absolutely great. You just you're really running on adrenaline, and you and people notice that. I mean, the young people there, man, they would come up and they'd say that show was pure, Kinky.
Yeah.
It was pure because I'm hearing Johnny Appleseed speaking to me, or Jesus Christ, or Hank Williams, or somebody, and it's that's why. I mean, you really don't know where you are, and you find your mind wandering, especially when you're doing a solo show mostly. Joe Cerati comes in on the last 4 songs, but before that, and they've been really nailing it. This has been easy and fun, very natural. I noticed another thing of both Bob and Willie, and that is they play a lot of guitars out of tune.
Mm.
I mean, they like for the instrument to be out of tune. They don't want you or me or some producer fucking with it and tuning it for them. And the producer will say, it's fucking out of tune. He's going to record now. Both of them do that. I think that's more than coincidence. I think when you're great, maybe you challenge yourself that way, or maybe a spiritual slack key kind of an approach.
What's interesting, I mean, I think this is especially true with country music, and I was noticing this particularly on your record because it's so, minimal, because it's, as you're saying before, it's kind of your voice and, maybe a guitar or two, is that I think it's, particularly with country music, voices tend to get better with age, I mean, when you really, from all the smoking, you just lit up a cigar right now, all the smoking and the drinking, they add something to the voice.
Yeah, and I think somebody once told Sam Cooke that he had a beautiful voice. And he said, the voice don't have to be beautiful. You have to believe it. And Brian told me that just before we started recording this. And he also had some really good questions that I think make him a good producer. I mean, good descriptions. Like Little Jewford, who's a Jew and he drives a Ford, he's our original Texas Jewboy, was playing piano on the Tom Waits thing. And I told him, I don't think you should hear Tom's version of this.
Yeah.
Because it's fucking like Toulouse-Lautrec playing. It's brilliant, and it's going to affect you.
You can't help it.
Oh, it's like
imitate.
It's like the old days when I played the Troubadour in L.A. and Bob Dylan was there. One of the Jewboys were playing, and he told our road manager, "Do not tell Kinky I'm here." He said, "It will subtly change the show, and I don't want that to happen." And by the time the road manager got to me, I told him, "Hey, guess what? Bob Dylan's here." So, and it did change the show. It's better to play for strangers totally. What the fuck was I talking about? There was really, finally it was a cogent kind of a thing. Jewford. Jewford, yeah.
Listening to Tom Waits.
Two things, that he said. One he did with me. With Jewford said, how do I fucking play this thing? This Tom Waits song, Christmas card. And Brian told him, Kerouacian piano. And it was like a big Hollywood director, That's Kerouac and Jewford got it immediately. He said, I got it. So Coffee House, Beatnik.
Beatnik, sure.
Got it.
Yeah.
He did one take and he nailed it, And the other thing was going to be something that Brian told me that's just basic. That I don't know, but we used the Frank Sinatra method. If we didn't get it on one or two takes, we tore it up and threw it in the fire. Then
it's the same reason you write on a typewriter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's kind of, if you're a creative person and you rely on the internet or the whatever it is, word processor too much, I don't think that's good. I think it breeds mediocrity. And also, let's go for the truth ourselves. Let's social networking purvey a fraud upon us. And I've described this, the danger of the internet is, let's say there's a 57-year-old pedophile in New Jersey, hypothetically.
Sure, I'm sure there is.
The man can, today, he will use the internet to pretend to be, say, a 26-year-old surfer in San Diego. And this guy contacts a 13-year-old girl in Montana who really is a middle-aged vice cop in Miami. That's where the internet is headed, I believe. And, while you can Google some things that are interesting, there's a lot of stuff out there that isn't necessarily the truth. I mean, anybody's Wikipedia or whatever that is bullshit. Mine is total bullshit. I'm looking at it. I mean, I haven't looked at it. Somebody showed me this, and it's just not true.
I'm running out of my allotted time, and I have to ask you. And this gets back to Tom Waits a little bit. I heard you tell a story about I think going to see Bo Diddley with Tom Waits, and he turned to you and said something along the lines of, if I'm that age and still performing, either stop me or kill me. I can't remember which one it was, but
do not let me. When I get that old, do not let me get on stage.
Was that ever? Did you ever think that at any point that at some point you would just have to stop playing music?
Well, I took many decades off from. I haven't. It's not as I've been playing. I wish I had been, but life gets in the way, and the curse of being multi-talented is a true curse. And you can see it that I may have more fans in a basic area than the other guy, but if the other guy is Leo Kottke or somebody that's a pure musician, the club emails everybody, and the people that like Kinky, maybe like in Australia, they all bring books to be signed, at a concert. Now, why is that? They're a literary country, maybe more than we are, but and then again, it's all. I don't know. It's such an indefinable thing, inspiration, and you never know who you're going to reach. You never know. And the Mandela story is a beautiful example of it. And so is the kid that was interviewing me. A kid may be a 47-year-old man to me. How old are you, Brian?
34.
34. Yeah. That's a good young age. But the Mandela thing, I strive to be significant. And that group of people are the ones that are beloved by German young people today. And that's Hunter Thompson, Robert Mitchum, whatever, Abby Hoffman.
Kerouac. Dylan.
Dylan, yes. Dylan will go in there. Troublemakers. But a lot of them are like Graham Parsons, who is probably more well-known in Australia and Europe than he is here.
Yeah.
But they're Graham Parsons types. Van Dyke Parks, Shel Silverstein, Warren Zevon. Perfect.
More on the fringe, you mean?
Kinky Friedman. I like to be Iggy Pop. I'd like to be with that group. I think that's a group that Barbara Jordan I always throw in there because she should have been president. But now you see what we got.
What we call cult figures now.
All right, if we'd had a cult figure, I'd say something that would be great. We don't have anybody that can reach a cult. We got a president that can't even inspire black people or young people. And there's nobody else around that can either that's in politics. And in Africa, do you see any little Nelson Mandelas rising up anywhere? No, you don't. You do not. You see black leaders that are imitating colonialists, the brutal, corrupt colonialists, except they're black. That's the only difference. And so I think the guy's right. All I started to tell you what the guy said was, I said that, I don't know what the fuck I said, but this kid, the kid was saying, Kinky, he's saying if I had a choice between playing in the stadiums and making millions or knowing that a song I'd written had been listened to in his prison cell every night by Nelson Mandela, he said, I'd be you. I'd be that guy in a heartbeat. I wouldn't even think about that one. And that was a delightful observation on his part.
Think about that for a second, though.
He's a young person, yeah. If I was his age, I'd probably agree.
Yeah.
Now, I'm just trying to achieve my goals as a young person, to be fat, famous, financially fixed, and a faggot by 50.
There you go. That was Kinky Friedman. Utterly fascinating conversation with an utterly fascinating guy. I hope you got as much out of that as I did. I feel like I should have done a better job setting the scene. I know we did a rare disclaimer at the top of the show, but I should have painted a picture for you. So we recorded that conversation at BB King's Bar and Grill in Times Square. So there are two green rooms. Two backstage spaces at BB King. One is right off the side of the stage. That's where most of the people were congregating, sitting around and talking. And then there's a secondary green room if you go around the corner, a much larger, more cavernous space that actually nobody was occupying for most, because everyone was just jammed into this tiny room up front. But we went back there. Brought a couple of beers with us. Had some opened up some Cuervo. And Kinky just proceeded to kind of chain smoke his way through several cigars. It was a long, fascinating, interesting night. That was I can't remember the last time I had a conversation where I had to go and actually dry clean my clothing the next day to get the smell of cigars out. But really, really, really fascinating talk with him. He's as he said during the conversation, 70 years old, but reading at a 72-year-old level, and I feel like he's. I think it's safe to say he's packed 72 years of experiences into his 70 years. Politician, author, musician, obviously, and highly recommend this new record. Really fascinating. If you get a chance to see him, absolutely do that as well. It's a very very kind of singular experience. But the new record, which we touched upon, I think, quite a bit during that conversation. Really, even if you're not familiar with his music, really worth checking out. Very, very intimate, quite minimalist. This is a little cliche, but the closest comparison that I can come up with are the Rick Rubin, Johnny Cash records. Just really stripped down. It's most of it's just him and maybe a guitar or two, a piano at some point. But and I said this to him during the conversation, and I think it really does hold that country music, along with maybe blues, are two of the few genres where I think voices really get better with age, and that comes across here in a really wonderful way. Man, it was smoked many cigars and drunk quite a bit of tequila, I assume, over his 70 years, and that comes across in his voice. And really, really wonderful record. So check that out. Thank you so much to Kinky for taking the time to do that, and thanks to Kinky as well for just kind of inviting me backstage to hang out for the rest of the night. Heard some really, really, really interesting bits of gossip, none of which, unfortunately, I can relate to you at this point without fear of litigation. But I will be describing the night a little bit in fuller details. I've got an article for a publication coming out in the near future about the live experience in Kinky's new record. So stay tuned for that. I'll be posting that through the RIYL channels. So thanks so much to Kinky and his producer Brian and everybody for being so nice about that. Thanks to Carrie for setting that interview up. Thanks to Brian, as always, for editing the show together. Thanks to everybody at the Boing Boing Podcast Network. If you like this show, there are many other fine podcasts for you to check out over there. You can check those out over on iTunes. And while you're over on iTunes, take the opportunity to rate this program. And remember that the views expressed in this interview are not necessarily the views of RIYL, nor are some of the word choices. If you've got any feedback, it's riylcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Tumblr, riylcast.tumblr.com. That is the first and best place to get all of your RIYL related information. Lots and lots of good shows coming up, so stick around. We will be back just about this time next week with another episode of RIYL.